This episode of Alicization Explained is brought to you by an explosive battle on floor 80's Cloudtop Garden between Kirito and Alice. Ha! What a creative pun. Today we come to the end of Sword Art Online Volume 12 Alicization Rising as we get to see Kirito's perfect weapon control, meet Elevator-chan and have an incredible showdown with Kirito and Eugeo going against the Knight of the Fragrant Olive, Alice Synthesis 30. Welcome everyone, and this is Sword Art Online Alicization Explained featuring episode 16, the Osmanthus Knight. As always, timestamps to individual plot points are in the description as well as the pinned comment for easy navigation, but to give you a quick rundown, we got a couple of non-vital drops in this episode, and the biggest cut today is the amount of budget and time they have obviously dropped so far. However, I have to give props to A1, they really were considerate as to where this affected their quality, and they still managed to go all out with an incredibly dynamic battle, but I'll be more specific later on in the video. But with the overview out of the way, if you're new to my Explain series, what I do here is essentially provide you all the vital information on characters, events, action, lore from the source material, that is the light novels, things that the anime did not convey properly or just did not have the time to, so you can still see the full picture. But then again, if you want to read the books for yourselves for the amazing experience, Amazon and Book Depository affiliate links are in the description and the knowledge of Stacia awaits you down there. Also, around 3 weeks left on my current SAO Light Novel giveaway. Click the link in the description and enter the competition through various actions to win Sword Art Online Volume 14, Alicization Uniting, the end of the first half of Alicization's story. But without further ado, we covered the final 40 pages of Volume 12 Alicization Rising, so Chapter 8 Part 2 and Part 3, a reasonable amount to adapt that only resulted in non-vital drops as I mentioned at the beginning, but considering how much of a cliffhanger last week ended on, let's start. After last week you may be disappointed by how short that sequence lasted, but that's literally it. It was the final clash between two divine objects. However, the anime being a visual medium, naturally it was not explicitly stated as to why Kirito's perfect weapon control ended up being more powerful than Fanatio's heaven-piercing blade, though if I were to add, even the light novel illustration by Abek showcased the reasoning behind it much more efficiently. You see, the light beam of the heaven-piercing blade is just that, incredibly hot, concentrated light. On the other side, we got Kirito's the black one, made out of the demon tree Giga Cedar, the godly tree whose entire existence depended on absorbing the light of Solus and grow stronger. And while the anime tries to showcase the perfect weapon control with a flashy purple light, that is just for the shows, as the light novels clearly state that the tendrils extending from the sword were dark as the deepest night, as if it was absorbing all the light around it to grow more strong, much like the Giga Cedar. And this is clearly showcased in Abek's light novel illustration here, the tendrils having no clear shape or outer lines when they cross over each other, as they are literally as black as possible like a shadow, and in the end, it is Giga Cedar that grows stronger under Solus's light against a literal source that emits a focused version of Solus's light. Once provided with that context, of course, it's very clear as to how one-sided this clash was. With Fanatio thrown towards the ceiling, shattering all the murals and softly falling down, Eugeo had just realized that they had beaten 5 Integrity Knights in this room, not even including Fizel and Linel, who were only knights in name. With Eldri and Düsselbert defeated as well, Eugeo suddenly felt a rush of hope here. Cardinal said that there were 12 or 13 knights stationed in the central cathedral. So far, they had bested a total of 9 Integrity Knights. Their goal was closer than ever, but just when Eugeo was about to rise in confidence, Kirito collapsed on the ground. Well, there was more than enough spatial resources in the room thanks to all the energy Blue Rose Sword had absorbed from the Frozen Knights, as well as the clash between two divine weapons having emitted so much energy all around. Eugeo, while able to seal Kirito's wounds, had no way of restoring the life he had lost through the luminous element, so he had to transfer his life over to Kirito. While their dialogue afterwards is pretty much a word-by-word adaptation of the books, it was quite weird to see that they continued the scene by following Kirito instead of Eugeo, because up until the end of what this episode covers, the events are showcased strictly from Eugeo's point of view, and once Eugeo went towards Fizel and Linel, which were cut completely from the anime due to the camera following Kirito instead, Eugeo had a small, heartwarming moment as he lectured the kids, highlighting his development throughout more and more. But at this point, we all know how much the anime cares about Eugeo's development. It's quite sad to see, honestly, since the entire first half of Alicization is Eugeo's story. It's all about Eugeo breaking his shackles and growing as a human, while Kirito already has learned most of his lessons years ago in his previous experiences and is mostly just cruising through for what he believes is right. These episodes are all about Eugeo's inner turmoil and revelations, and it's quite sad to see that the opening sequence itself does a better job at giving Eugeo some development than multiple episodes combined. When walking towards Fizel and Linel to break their daggers and give them the antidote, Eugeo realized that they were not outright evil. He had realized they were just kids without a direction, judging from their innocent actions. As Eugeo was approaching them, both kids fled their eyes from looking towards Eugeo out of shame. As he knelt towards them, Eugeo shared something with them he realized just today, after having endured so much in the past couple of hours. Kirito and Fanatio, or other knights, were not strong because they possessed divine weapons unlike Fizel and Linel. They were strong with or without the aid of their divine weapons. Fizel and Linel were very skilled at taking others' life, however, such strength was not about killing, because winning did not have to mean defeating your opponent. It was solely about doing the right thing, walking towards the goal that one personally believed to be righteous. He knew Fizel and Linel were listening, but he couldn't end his sentence properly. And then he thought to himself. He had just remembered he was never good with kids in the first place, a neat little reference to when Kirito told him to deal with the kids back on the 29th floor, claiming Eugeo was better with the kids, as Eugeo realized just now that Kirito was actually bluffing all the way back there. But as he rushed to the other side of the room, Kirito was doing his absolute best at trying to save Fanatio, and we got more cut dialogues here. It's actually quite sad to see, but at this point it's quite clear that the anime decided to systematically remove certain recurring plot threads from the story. One clear example is the name of Kirito's sword, just on the top of my mind, unrelated to the current scene. The fact that Kirito does not name his sword and refers to it as the Black One actually appeared half a dozen times in the book so far, but the anime never even once mentioned this recurring plot thread. Same with the cut dialogue here, as Kirito tried to revive Fanatio, Eugeo saw how hopeless the situation was and actually tried to comfort Kirito instead of helping. He knew Fanatio would die for sure even if he helped, so he reminded Kirito what he asked him in the prison. If Eugeo was ready to take on the knights and take their life if he absolutely needed to. Eugeo was still committed to that idea, however now his partner in front of his eyes was refusing the idea of letting a knight die. With the heat of the moment, Kirito slipped something from his mouth again. She'll be gone if she dies, and I can't just erase that soul of hers. I mean, if I die, I just... Kirito suddenly broke into silence before finishing that sentence, and Eugeo had to ask, what did Kirito mean by that? All life was granted by Stacia, and at the end, the soul returned to her just like it arrived. Was Kirito not bound by this rule? What would happen if Kirito actually died? But before he could ask further, Kirito called upon the residents of the central cathedral to save Fanatio, and after not a single person answered, he grabbed the dagger Cardinal gave him, which was meant to be used on Queen Ella, and stabbed Fanatio with it for Cardinal to save her. Another quite minor small detail that was systematically dropped from the anime run is that, much like Charlotte the Spider, Quinella had her own small familiars that she had tasked with finding a way to reach Cardinal in the Great Library. I didn't mention this back in episode 12 explained since it was minor, but I guess I have time for a couple sentences today. Whenever Cardinal makes an appearance in Underworld, little spiders tasked by Quinella always chase down towards where they sense there's a connection to the library, and after Cardinal's speech to Kirito, one of those spiders actually tried climbing Eugeo's legs, causing him to panic and accidentally smash the spider under his feet. It's just one of those small details that showcased Quinella was not really remaining idle against Cardinal and was actively trying to reach her all the time. It was also one of those funny moments that showcased how scared Kirito was towards spiders, as he kept asking Eugeo to check the back of his uniform diligently to ensure there were no spiders on it. Funny considering he lived over 2 years with Charlotte in his hair. I'm gonna gloss over the elevator Chan scene, mainly because it's once again an exact replica of the books. In the 4 pages she appears in, she features one of the most colorless and sad stories of Underworld, possessing only one wish: to fly freely in the blue skies outside. But on floor 80 on the Cloudtop Garden, the final goal of Eugeo was resting under sunlight. The Knight of the Fragrant Olive, wielder of the Osmanthus blade, Alice Synthesis 30, and I do not have much to say about this amazing fight sequence, you know? In every single still frame before, you could see they were really straining the budget or time. They reused scenes from last episode and even earlier from this specific episode. It would be very easy to go with a very simple fight here, throwing Kirito towards the wall in one single hit, but they made them fight from the middle of the arena towards the wall step by step, using incredibly creative choreography and detail. It was absolutely mesmerizing to watch. The scene was an incredible and even more exciting adaptation of the fight scene, and even included the final detail when Kirito used his perfect weapon control, contrary to Alice's instincts. Alice was expecting the blow to land on her, however Kirito went for the sword instead, not to harm it or Alice, but to prevent the pedals from rearranging to the sword, because he had figured out that the pedals were only the perfect weapon control, not her memory release. Thus the pedals did not have their own mind, unlike the snake of Eldri's Frostwhip scale or Dussolbert's conflagration bow in their memory release states. The pedals were still directly controlled by Alice's movements of the Osmanthus blade's hilt. Isolating the Osmanthus blade would render Alice completely useless, hence why Kirito had went for the sword in that instance. But as the pedals of the Osmanthus blade clashed with the solid darkness emitting from Kirito's the Black One, something unexpected happened due to the explosive energy being emitted from the 2 clashing divine weapons on the walls that were weakened by the Blue Rose sword as well. Central Cathedral was supposed to be indestructible, as sacred arts ensured that the walls were at a constantly repairing state. However, the divine power of 3 godly weapons blasted the wall open, sucking Alice and Kirito out, leaving Eugeo, who had been chasing after Alice and had been encouraged by Kirito throughout his entire journey of over 2 years, was left punching the solid wall that had repaired itself already completely in mere seconds, with none of his mental anchors around him anymore. And oh, would you look at that, the statues on the 85th floor ledge are there again. Well, we're around the time to properly pay attention to them after me hinting at them since episode 1, so yeah, they are indeed there. Look. Alright now, what to say? It's a brilliant episode, it's absolutely amazing, but I'm not happy to see a couple minor plot threads being systematically dropped from the entire anime at this point, considering all of those quote-unquote minor threads are supposed to come together to enhance the ending of the first half of Alicization. But hey, that is more reasons for you to read the books or just come here every week to listen to my sweet voice. I absolutely love this episode though, the way they didn't care about the visuals in non-fight scenes that caused weird faces or repeat scenes, because in the end the limitations were there and they most certainly prioritized the parts that actually mattered, the fight scenes themselves. The way this ceiling shattered when Fanatio got smashed at it, the entire fight scene between Kirito and Alice, and choreography and key details that were included in the fight, it was mesmerizing episode all around. But the next episode is titled Truce. Volume 12 Alicization Rising is over, and we will start with the contents of Volume 13 Alicization Dividing. Eugeo has been separated from his partner and his goal that was right in front of his eyes. Kirito and Alice have fallen victim to an unexpected event, pun entirely intended, but the journeys of all characters are far from over. The commander of the Integrity Knights has not yet been sighted in the tower, and there are other unexpected dangers all around, planted by the administrator herself. But if you made it this far into the video, do comment "time for Alicization Dividing" to let me know. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, my Volume 14 Alicization Uniting giveaway is up for you to join, so do check the description or the pinned comment. You can also find Amazon and Book Depository links to Sword Art Online novels, manga, games and more in the description as well. Hope you enjoyed this week's Alicization Explained. Thank you very much for watching. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more on Sword Art Online and hit the bell icon to get notified. Huge thanks to my patrons as usual, and I'll see you next time. Stay cool.